Hello, I'm back. Today's lecture is on character and ethics and what that has to do with and how it's associated with being successful in management vis-a-vis culture, and how we can apply that in the settings in which we work. Character is defined as the moral or ethical quality, or another definition is the quality of honesty, courage, and integrity. So you can see the interrelation between the two, that the word ethical is in the definition of character. For ethics, a system of moral principles, the ethics of a culture. Once again, you see the kind of themes that we're talking about in this class reflecting in the definition. The rules of conduct recognized in respect to a particular class of human actions or particular group of cultures. Third definition, moral principles of an individual. And principles, that's almost a word we could have included there. Principles meaning rules that we live our life by, rules that define who we are. Okay, we're going to start with ethics. Okay. Ethics and ethical behavior are an essential part of healthy management. From a management perspective, behaving ethically is an integral part of long-term success. Wide access to information and more business opportunities than in the past make ethics a need in the modern business world. And what I mean by that is we all pay a lot more attention to what everybody's doing. Part of that is the 24/7, 365-day your news cycle that's always going, always going, always going. But another part of that is just our own propensity to be part of social networks, whether we're talking LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever, that we're making those connections and that they're easy to make. We now know more about people halfway around the world that we've never met than 20 years ago we may have known about the people living in our own apartment building. It's just so much easier for that information to pass through. So if we want to have long-term success as a manager, we need to behave, and we need to create organizations that behave in an ethical manner, or else people will know. Nowhere is this more true than somewhere like the North Slope, where we're just talking about a few thousand people, and we generally all know each other, and maybe not myself, but many of us are related to many of the people that we work with. Everybody knows everything, and if you haven't shown that ethics, you're not going to be successful. Okay, but ethics are also an important for the customer. How you present yourself, how you show yourself, the people you prove yourself to be. Okay, from the point of view of the internal customer, that improves the atmosphere at work. And your internal customers are the people who you're not necessarily directly selling to, but still that you have to convince, you have to have on your side. Your external customers being the people you are directly selling to, but either way, they're people that you need to have influence over. So from their perspective, it involves the atmosphere at works and helps with motivating employees. Your numbers and manager, your number one customers are basically your employees. They have to buy what you're selling, if you will. The ethical behavior of management sets a good example for those employees and evokes a sense of pride for the company, that they belong to something important, something bigger than themselves, and something that they want to be successful. It improves the images of the company and of you yourself in the eyes of the employee. From the point of view of the external customer, it improves the public image of the company. Everybody talks about branding, everybody's worried about PR and how their company looks. Well, acting ethically is, in this environment, the best advertising you're going to get. we live in the Facebook economy where we see everybody's thoughts on everything. But even if you think about something like iTunes, if you've used iTunes, where customer reviews, or Yelp, or any number of other social online places, people look to other people to see if that's the place they want to do business with. People read other people's comments to see what kind of a business you are. So if you want to improve your public image, acting ethically, and especially not getting caught acting unethically, is a #1 way to go. It adds to the overall development of the ethical behavior of our society. And though that might not directly increase your bottom line, it's certainly a good thing. Okay? Now, organizational ethics. And what do I mean by that? I mean the ethics that your organization has as its sort of default expectations. Okay? There's 4 levels of it. Social disregard. That's where a company shows carelessness for the consequences of its actions. Fair or not, that's the way that people looked at BP after the Gulf oil spill. A number of businesses, even in our community, I remember an incident last year, I think it was last year, where somebody found 10,000 or 50,000, some large amount of money belonging to, I believe it was Osaka's, and at least the story that I heard was that for finding their huge amount of money, they gave them 1 free meal, and a lot of people were offended by that. Now, I don't even know if the story's true, and I don't know if there is more to the story, but what I do know is that Osaka's was seen as acting sort of unethically, that was really kind of a poor thank you for what they did, and it offended people, and it made people less eager to go there. Okay, so it showed social disregard, not caring about how people are going to be looking at you. The next level up is a social obligation. The company does not wish to extend its activity any further than meeting just its responsibility. So this is the company that, they're not breaking the law, but they're certainly not going 1 step above what the law is. They're actively thinking about what the minimum responsibility is. Ford got in trouble in the 70s for acting this way, where they actually figured out what was going to be cheaper, to continue to make a car and pay off the lawsuits, or to pull the car off the street and make sure that the injuries associated with the Pinto, as it was, happened. And they found it would be cheaper to leave it on there and just pay the lawsuits. I mean, was their choice legal? Yeah, their choice was legal, but boy, it really didn't impress anybody. Next level, social responsiveness. The company adjusts its policies according to the social condition, demands, and pressures. So they're certainly not a leader, but they at least are trying to go above the minimum. They're reading the tea leaves. This is your Apple. This is oh gosh, a lot of companies, McDonald's tends to be this company where they try to kind of see what people want them to be, and they try to be that. They're not trying to go out and go above and beyond or act in an ethical way that really impresses the people or improves their chances, but they're also not trying to actively alienate their customers. They're reading the winds and acting accordingly. The highest level being social responsibility. The company decides to concentrate on its long-term goals for the benefit of society in general. Ben and Jerry's is a great example of this. Google sometimes tries to be this, sometimes tries to not. One of my best friends' dad runs a company that gives 30% of its profits away every year, in addition to he personally tithing 10% of what he makes, and so from his business. And so he's trying to make people know his company is the type of company that has a certain value set, that believes in certain things, and that's willing to put its money where its mouth is and act accordingly. Okay. Now, great, we've talked about ethics, kind of levels of them, why they're important. should we consider when making ethical decisions? Okay? When making a decision in management, the following criteria of an ethical decision should be considered. The first and most obvious is the legality, or is what you're doing okay legally? Because if it's not, it's automatically not something you should be doing, and it's probably not ethical. Right? The second, and really more serious and more relevant, is fairness. How does it affect those involved? Okay, it might be okay to sell your product when in a normal time and get the normal profit you would get, but what if you refusing to sell your product for what someone can afford will cost people lives? Is that fair? Is other places you see it is how much should we pay our employees? Should we pay our employees the minimum that we can pay and still be able to operate our business, or should we pay them a living wage that is more fair? And I don't want you to take this too far either, because you need to also make sure you're going to stay in business. You can't be fair to the point of kicking yourself out of business. You got to be fair to yourself and fair to your company too. So figuring out where that is, how do I be fair? Is my decision fair? Okay. Effective. Will the decision reach the aim for which the goals it is taken? Is it going to work? Because if you find something, you're going to do something, but it's not going to have any effect, it's not going to be relevant, then you're kind of wasting your time. Okay. So the three most obvious and important ones: is it legal? Is it fair? And is it going to work? A couple other ones to think about: self-respect. Does the decision maker feel good about the decision and its consequences? Because if you don't, there's probably a reason. It's probably not something that you want to be involved in. There's probably something kinky about it that is not going to be what you want to be a part of. Okay. Long-term effects. How is this going to affect things in the future? What are the predicted long-term effects of the choices you're making? What can you see happening? It's important not to look in the short term, but also to look at the long term. Okay. Ethics and management. Management ethics are the ethical treatment of people, stockholders, and owners, and the public by a company. A company will need to make a profit, and it should have good ethics. Employees should be treated well, and whether the employees are here or overseas, fairness needs to rule. Okay? Probably not going to be doing too many overseas businesses in the context of what we're learning here, but think about all of the news that there's been about the iPads being made in China, about the employees over there being treated fairly. Apple's taken a great hit here for things that aren't even happening here. Okay, so how do we apply that to the North Slope? Well, North Slope corporations, whether we're talking about ASRC or Gulnick or whatever, a lot of them have investments that are not even in the North Slope. So we need to be making sure that we're not just being fair to ourselves, but being fair to all those who we might be associated with. Okay? By being respectful of the environment and in the community, a company shows good ethics, and good, honest records also show respect for the self, for the corporation, for its shareholders, and its customers. And that is what long-term success is made of. Okay, now I see I'm approaching 15 minutes and sometimes these won't load, so I'm going to go ahead and make a second video associated with this. It shouldn't be as long as the first one, but I hope you watch that one, and I'll see you in a couple minutes.